Good morning, students. Today I am going to discuss a new chapter from your class 12 biology syllabus. The name of the chapter is Principles of Inheritance and Variation. Already I have made 4 videos of the 4 chapters from your class 12 biology syllabus. I hope you have gone through all the videos properly. Let's start the today's session of chapter 5. The name of the chapter already I have told, the principles of inheritance and variation. Before starting this chapter, I must say one thing, that this chapter belongs to the genetics portion, and this chapter is quite important and difficult chapter than any other chapters from your class 12 biology syllabus. So please go through each and every videos I will post, because each and every video will help you a lot for better understanding and easy memorization. So let's start the today's class. The first thing is the genetics. The first slide contains about the genetics. So first you should know what is the basic meaning of the genetics, or what is the meaning of the genetics. So actually this is one kinds of the branch of biology which deals with the gene. So this genetic word starts from the gene. So this is the actually the branch of biology that deals with the inheritance and variation. It means the genetics, it means the gene. Okay, so actually the living beings produce their offsprings of their own kinds, okay, through the sexual reproduction, and through their different kinds of the reproduction procedure. The young ones produced by the different kinds of the reproduction procedure, sexual reproduction and either in vitro or in vivo, and it's always resemble their parents and also each other. Okay, so this is actually, but this still, but nowadays we show considerable variation. Okay, so because we all are produced from our parents by sexual reproduction, by different kinds of the procedure, either in vitro or in vivo, but still we show a considerable variation. So organisms actually reproduce formation of offspring of the same kind. The resulting offspring most often do not totally resemble the parent. So this is the variation. This is our survival strategy. We are not look like our parents. More or less same characteristics can be there, same types can be there, but the looks can be different. Some characteristics must be different. So this comes the variety, this comes the variation. So this is the inheritance, the process by which the characters are passed on from parent to progeny by the gene. So this is the basic things of the genetics. And the variation, what is the meaning of the variation? Actually this is one kinds of the degree. This is the degree by which the progenies differ from their parents. I am repeating again, what is the basic definition of the variation? The basic definition of variation, that it's actually the degree by which the progenies differ from their parents. So this is the variation. And I have told already the inheritance word. What is the basic definition of inheritance? What is the basic meaning of the inheritance? Actually this is the process by which any kinds of characteristics, any kinds of traits are passed from the parent to their progeny, like generation after generation. So this is actually, this inheritance actually the basis of the heredity. And I think you have already studied all those things in your class 10 standard. So I think all of you know little bit about this heredity, about this inheritance. So this is the inheritance, this is the actually the heredity, and this is the variation. So overall, so what is genetics? Genetics means actually the branch of biology which deals with the inheritance. So this is the meaning of the genetics. This is actually the gene oriented thing, the study about genes. Genetics means the study about the genes. So this is the genetics portion. Next slide contains some picture. So just all the pictures of the family, okay, each and every individual family, but they are more or less same in aspect, their characteristics, their different traits, different behavior, but their look are not same. Their looks are not same. There are some kinds of characteristics, some degree of the characteristics are not same, some degree of the traits are not same. So this is the variation, this is the variability, and this is our survival strategy. This is our survival strategy. Next thing is the history, from where this genetics term is actually came from. So the first thing, the human knew before 8000 to 1000 BC variation is due to the sexual reproduction, because through the asexual reproduction variation cannot come. Okay, so this variation, the basis of the variation is the sexual reproduction. So exploited variations present in the wild plants and the animals to selectively breed and select organism with the desirable characteristics. So this is also called the artificial hybridization. So already you have studied about the artificial hybridization. So what happened in the artificial hybridization? To make the variation, to produce the variability, so we need some kinds of the artificial things. So we need some kinds of the selective breed and select organism for the desirable characteristics. So this is also called the artificial selection and the domestication of the wild cow and the sahiwal cows in the Punjab. So this is one kind of the artificial hybridization. But what is the main purpose? The main purpose is to produce the variation, to produce the variation. Next thing is some terminology is also there. Okay, this is important for your exam, this different kinds of the terminology, that what is the meaning of the genetics, what is the meaning of the variation, what is the meaning of the heredity. So all those things are important for your 1 mark or 2 marks question. So the first thing is what is the meaning of the genetics? What is the meaning of the genetics? So already I have discussed the genetics, actually the branch of life science. The genetics actually the branch of life science that deals with the study of heredity and the variation. I am repeating again, genetics is actually the branch of life science which deals with the study of heredity and the variation. So this is very important thing, that what is the meaning of genetics. Actually this is one kind of the subject, this is one kind of the branch of the biology, branch of the life science, which actually deals with the gene, and the gene is mainly responsible for this heredity and variation. And I think all of you know that what is the meaning of the gene. Gene is actually the segment of the DNA, and DNA is the main hereditary material in our life. This DNA, this gene actually enters in our body and it passes generation after generation. Okay, so this is the basis of our survival. This is actually the basis of our survival strategy. So this is the genetics. Next terminology is the heredity. So already I have discussed what is the meaning of the heredity. It's actually the transmission of characteristics from parents to their offspring. So this inheritance, actually this all those inheritance forms the basis of the heredity. Next thing is the variation. What is the meaning of the variation? Actually this is the difference among the offsprings and with the parents. I am repeating again, what is the meaning of the variation? This is actually the difference among the offsprings and with their parents. So this variation actually comes by the sexual reproduction, not in the asexual reproduction. So who are actually performing the asexual reproduction, so their offspring and parents more or look like same, because you cannot identify that this is the parent amoeba and this is the offspring amoeba. This is the parent's hydra, this is the offspring hydra. You cannot identify, but you can easily identify that this is the parent's human being and this is the offspring, this is their offspring. So already you can know these things, or you can easily understand these things. Why? Because of the variation, because of this variety, because of this variation, and this variation comes through the sexual reproduction. Next thing is the hereditary variation. So these are genetical and the inheritable. And next thing is the environmental variation. Actually these are non heritable. So this is the basic thing. Next slide contains about one scientist. The name of the scientist is Gregor Johann Mendel. He is also called the father of genetics. Okay. So actually there is a story that it was during the mid 19th century. That time one headway was made in the understanding of the inheritance. So these scientists, this Gregor Johann Mendel, actually conducted one experiments for the first time to understand the patterns of inheritance and variations in living things. How these DNA pass generation after generation. How this gene carries all the information generation after generation. What is the actual meaning of the inheritance? What is the actual meaning of the heredity? So all those things are actually was questionable before this 19th century. So these scientists actually conducted one experiments for the first time to understand the patterns of inheritance and variations in the living things. So his observation actually became the foundation of modern genetics and study of heredity. So this Gregor Johann Mendel, also called the modern genetics, father of the modern genetics or father of genetics. So this scientist, this Gregor Johann Mendel, developed the principles of heredity while studying 7 pairs of inherited characteristics in pea plant. Actually his main objects of his experiment was the pea plant. Okay, the scientific name of the pea plant is the Pisum sativum. So these scientists, why this scientist is called the father of modern genetics or father of genetics? Because he conducted hybridization experiments on the garden pea for 7 years in the year of 1856 to 1863 and proposed the laws of different kinds of the inheritance. We will discuss later about their laws. So although the significance of his work was not recognized during his lifetime, but it has become the basis for the present day field of genetics. So this is his history, that actually in the time of the mid 19th century, these scientists developed the principles of the heredity while studying 7 pairs of the inherited characteristics in the pea plant. And although the significance of his work was not recognized during his lifetime, but this experiment and his experiment actually the main pillar of the present day genetics work. So what is the Mendel's approach? So he conducted hybridization experiment like the artificial pollination or cross pollination, because this is called the hybridization. Experimented for 7 years. Already I have told, in the year of 1856 to 1863, and proposed the law of inheritance. It applied the statistical analysis and mathematical logic for biology problems. Next thing, large sampling size, greater creatability to data. Fourth, experiments, the true breeding pea plants. Next thing, confirmation of inheritance from experiments on successive generation of test plants proved general rules of the inheritance. And the last one is the Mendel investigated two opposite traits, tall and dwarf, yellow and green seed. So we will discuss later about the Mendel's experiment. So this was actually the Mendel's approach. This was actually the Mendel's approach of his experiment. So I am repeating again, what is the experimental approach of Mendel's? Actually this Mendel's methodology during the investigation
of the inheritance pattern. It includes some mathematical logic, statistical analysis of the data, and apart from this, along with this all those things, his experiments had a large sampling size that gave the greater variety, greater creativity, greater credibility to the data that he collected. So this was actually the Mendel's approach towards his experiment. Next thing is the 7 pair of the contrasting characters selected by Mendel for his experiment. So I am repeating again, what is the main material of his experiment? Actually he selected garden pea at his experimental material. Why? Because there is some reasons are also there. Why? Because pea plants are readily available. The main material, actually the experimental material should be readily available, easily available on large scale, and has their bisexual characteristics. So two things actually he discovered, the dominant and the recessive trait. So we will discuss in our next slide what is the meaning of dominance, what is the meaning of the recessive. So actually a list of contrasting traits like the stem height, like the height. So two types of height you can easily identify, that the tall and short. Next thing is the seed shape, okay, round or wrinkled. Next thing is the seed color, yellow and green. Seed coat, green and white. Pod shape, inflated and constricted. Pod color, green or yellow. And the last one is the flower position, axial or terminal. So actually he picked up 7 characteristics, and then he discovered 2 contrasting characters of this particular characteristics. So this is the basic things of the 7 pair of the contrasting characters. So this is the basis thing, this is actually the basic materials of the Mendel's experiment. So this is the basic thing. Next thing is the terminology, the phenotype. What is the meaning of the phenotype? The phenotype actually the external appearance of an organism. The phenotype means the what you look like my skin color, my eye color, my hair color. So this is the phenotype which you can see from the external environment. Next thing is the phenotype. What is the meaning of the phenotype? That this is actually the external appearance of an organism due to the influence of genes and the environmental factors. So it means, already I have told you that what you look like. Actually this is our phenotype. What is our actually the external characteristics, the outer characteristics, like my skin color, my hair color, my eye color, what you can look from what you can see from the outside. This is our phenotype. Next thing is the genotype. So the genotype means the genetic composition, the genetic constitution of an individual responsible for the phenotype. So this is our genetic composition, genetic constitution of an individual which is responsible for the phenotype. So like my skin color, so for this skin color one gene is responsible. Like my eye color, for this eye color one gene is responsible. So the genetic constitution, genetic composition of an individual which is responsible for the phenotype. Next thing is the phenotypic ratio, the correct proportion of the phenotype in the population. That's called the phenotypic ratio. Next thing is the genotypic ratio. It means the correct proportion of genotype in the population in our one environment, in one territory, in one biome. Next thing is the homozygous. What is the meaning of homozygous? Homo means the same. I think all of you know that homo means the same. So the individual having the identical genes in an allelic pair for a character. So we will discuss later about this identical gene concept and the allelic pair concept. Okay. So what is the meaning of homozygous? Homozygous means the same gene or same characteristics. When we are showing that means we actually have the homozygous gene. So the individual having the identical genes in an allelic pair for a character, that's called the homozygous. Like capital T, small t. So all those genes are look like same, their characteristics are same, and they belong to the same gene locus. So that's why these are called the homozygous. Next thing is the heterozygous. Hetero means the different. So what does it mean? What is the meaning of the heterozygous? So the individual having unidentical genes. It means the different genes in an allelic pair for a characters, like the capital T, small t. Okay, so these two genes are different. These two genes are not same. So these are the heterozygous. Hetero means the different. Next thing is the terminologies in genetics. So what is the meaning of the factor or gene? What is the meaning of the gene? So this is actually the functional unit of the heredity responsible for the expression of characters in the progeny. So what is the meaning of gene? In a simple word, this is actually the segment of DNA. This is actually the segment of DNA, and this is the functional unit of the heredity. This is actually the functional unit of the heredity, and this gene is solely responsible for the expression of our each and every characteristics in our body. Okay, so this is the factor or gene. Next thing is the locus. Locus means the position of the genes on the chromosome. So like the 9th number chromosome, like the 7th chromosome. So this eye colored responsible gene located on the 9th chromosome. So this is the position. This is the home of the gene on the chromosome. Next thing is the allele. Okay, so what is the meaning of allele? Allele means the different forms of gene. So one gene has two forms. Normally one gene has two forms. So allele means the different forms of the gene is called the allele. The alternative form of a gene for a contrasting characteristics. Okay, like I am showing this thing, like the height. Okay, for tall, suppose this is capital T. Okay, and for short, this is suppose small t. So two opposite contrasting characteristics are showing. For height, there is only one gene is responsible, but one gene has two allele. One gene has two allele. Okay, it means the different forms of gene, contrasting forms of gene, that's called the allele. Like the height is responsible, the one gene is responsible for this character height. Okay, but for height there is two allele, either tall or the short, capital T or the small t. So this is the basic things of the allele, and this is actually present on the identical locus of the homologous chromosome. So this is actually one microscopic view. The 14th chromosome in a root cell of a pea plant as seen with confocal scanning laser microscopy. This is the 14th number chromosome in a root cell of a pea plant. So next thing is that this is the last slide for today. Next terminology is the dominant gene. So the gene that expresses its character in the heterozygous condition. So what is the meaning of dominant? Dominant means the who can actually influence the other characteristics. That's called the dominant. So these kinds of gene actually influence, actually mask of the other characters, that's called the dominant gene. Next one is the recessive gene. What is the meaning of the recessive gene? So this gene actually fails to express its character in the heterozygous condition. Okay, next thing is the hybrid. Hybrid means the progeny which is obtained by crossing two parents that differ in the characteristics. So that's called the hybrid, and the procedure is also called the hybridization. Next one is the back cross. So the cross between the F1 hybrid and one of its parents. And the last one is the test cross, the cross between the hybrid and its homozygous recessive plant. So we will discuss later about the back cross and test cross when we will study the Mendel's experiment. Okay. So this is the different terminology which is related with the genetics. This is the some terminologies are there which is related with the genetics. You have to know all the terminology to understand properly each and every experiment of Mendel's. So that's why go through these videos properly and go through each and every terminology properly 1 or 2 times. Otherwise you cannot understand our next session. Okay. So thank you. Bye. I hope this video will help you a lot for better understanding. And if any queries are there, please ask me immediately. And this chapter is quite complicated chapter and quite difficult chapter. I am repeating again and again. So go through each and every videos properly. Okay, thank you. Bye.